and welcome to Seen Through Glass. Welcome to another YouTuber-themed episode of Driveway Goals. Today, you find me in Atlanta, Georgia, where I've come to meet up with Ed from VINWiki. So, let's go find out what cars he has on his driveway.
Hey guys, I'm Ed Bolian from VINWiki. Welcome to my home and welcome to my garage. Come on in and I'll show you some of the cars.
Yeah. Ay, coming in, yeah. Flex, I just wanna win, yeah. LABB, who we running with, yeah.
So this is my favorite car. It's a 2007 Lamborghini Murcielago LP640. It's one of 28 that they brought to the US with a manual gearbox. It's actually the 5th LP640 that I've owned. I just think that in terms of everything that's cool about historic and significant supercars and everything that's great about the usability of modern supercars, this kind of fits right at this peak. And so I love the car. I drive it most of all. It's got about 43,000 miles on it, and it was actually originally black. And I had sold another manual LP640 that was Grigio Telesto gray, and I felt like I needed to get another one, and I found one, but I hate black cars because I hate cleaning cars. And so this is a color that Lamborghini didn't build any cars for the US for. It's called Verde Draco, or Dragon Green, and it was actually the color that they used in the press car that was right-hand drive for Top Gear. That was an E-Gear car, but there was an identically spec manual car delivered to the UK. Best I understand it, there's 5 manual Verde Draco cars in the world. So super cool, but my favorite car by far, big and extreme and loud with a big Howley V12. Goes plenty fast, but it's comfortable enough to drive. So I bought it in Phoenix, drove it home, and continue to drive it as much as I possibly can. Next to it, we've got a 1995 Porsche 993. It's kind of modeled after a Carrera RS. It's not a real Carrera RS. In the US, that'd be a $500,000 car, but it's got the bumpers and the rockers and the wing and things like that. It's just a great, visceral, air-cooled 911. I bought it about a year ago, drove it a good bit, had a lot of fun with it, handed it around to some other YouTubers to drive, and we're actually going to give it away when our channel hits 1 million subscribers. So we've had a lot of fun with it, put a lot of fun miles on it. At the moment, it lost a shift bushing, so it's a little tough, but we'll get there. Maybe the most significant car in the garage is this. This is the 2004 Mercedes CL55 AMG that in 2013, along with Dave Black and Dan Wong, I set the world record for the Cannonball Run. So we drove from New York to Los Angeles in 28 hours, 50 minutes. That car's got 2 additional 22-gallon fuel tanks, so it's got about 67 gallons total. It'll do about 850 miles on a tank, so we did it on 3 stops. It's got 3 radar detectors, 2 laser jammers, an ambulance traffic light changer, 4 GPS systems, multiple tracking devices, gauges for all the auxiliary stuff, harnesses and wiring for iPads and tablets and phones and all that. And it's a whole lot of fun. So I don't drive it all that much anymore. It's actually got a ton of miles on it. It's got about 137,000. I just had to get all the emissions checked because my birthday is next week here in Georgia, so we have to do that with an OBD test. Next to it is a 2002 Mercedes S55. When I set the Cannonball record, I learned that there were other people that kind of did this in different ways, and so one of them was a guy named John Ficarra, and he organizes an event called the 2904, and that's kind of like the 24 Hours of Lemons, like cheap car endurance racing meets Cannonball Run. And so he had kind of a set of rules where you had to drive across the country for $1 a mile, and I said, well, that sounds like a ton of fun. I'd love to sign up. And so they did an extra run. They thought they weren't going to do it anymore, but in 2015 we did that, and we won that in this car. It's a 12-owner, 2-accident, salvage title S55. It had some frame damage, the airbags were deployed, and it was in terrible, terrible shape. But the way that you can kind of work the rules, you can spend extra money on things that are safety related. So we got to fix the suspension, new brakes, new tires, and put it all back together with the help of a very helpful mechanic. And so we had a lot of fun with that. We did it in 32 hours, 5 minutes, which is the record for a competitive event from New York to LA. So love having that around, but it has 1 giant gas tank, about 75 gallons. And so it actually can't be registered in the US anywhere anymore. But, you know, maybe we'll figure out a way at some point. In 1985, Brumos Audi in Jacksonville, Florida built 12 Audi 4000 S Quattros to kind of commemorate Cannonball and Brock Yates. And Brock Yates hand signed all of the deck lids. He was the founder of the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash, and a personal hero of mine, obviously. He passed away in 2016, and I had the distinct honor of writing his obituary for Jalopnik. But I got to meet him before he died, and I had spoken to him when I was 18 years old and asked him about the idea of being an automotive journalist, or doing Cannonball one day in a modern context, and obviously he said it couldn't be done any faster, but I told him one day I would. Unfortunately, he had very advanced Alzheimer's at the time that he died, and so even at the time in 2013 when I set the record, he was kind of beyond being able to remember it, but I got to go visit him, sit with him, watch a football game, and he's definitely very, very much missed. But this car is number 1 out of 12. And I found it in a garage in Michigan. It had been there for 19 years, non-running, had an overheating problem. And then last year in the C2C Express, me, Alex Roy, and Arnie Toman raced it across the country. Not quickly, mind you. We went through about 10 gallons of coolant and probably about half that much oil. But we made it in 37 hours and change and had an awful lot of fun.
I'm going to interrupt you. I shouldn't. Usually during driveway goals, I don't interrupt this section. But just in case people watching don't know what the Cannonball is,
sure.
Can you just give us a brief history?
Yeah, so the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash is what the 1981 Cannonball Run movie starring Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, the Rat Pack, and Farrah Fawcett was actually based on. And it was a real cross-country race, generally from the Red Ball Garage in Manhattan to the Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach, California. And so it doesn't really exist in its normal form anymore. The final running was 40 years ago in 1979. And so we just did another cross-country drive to kind of celebrate that anniversary. I drove an old piece of junk Lexus and we did 35 hours, but it's just one of those great American road trip manifestations of this westward ho idea that we just kind of drive as far and as fast as we can. And so I was motivated by it, just hearing about how it kind of goes beyond the Nürburgring times and the 0 to 60 and the quarter-mile racing and everything that we've kind of gotten used to in consuming automotive journalism products, but it was a way to kind of brand yourself as a car enthusiast and a big problem to solve, because it's not just about building a car and going fast. You've got to deal with traffic, weather, construction, accidents, all these kind of things that could easily derail your drive, but somehow you make it across.
Amazing. Well, look, we'll get into it a little bit more, because obviously I'm doing kind of the opposite and a very slow version of the Cannonball.
That's it.
But anyway, so let me stop interrupting you. Please continue.
So at this point, this car barely works, but I love having it around. It's one of those cool things to see in the garage. And obviously in the US, we have the distinct privilege of having inexpensive real estate, big garages, and the chances to really drive our cars wherever we want, pretty much whenever we want. And so you can actually daily drive a Lamborghini. And so I love all of them in their own little ways. And I've also got a Mercedes S65 AMG that I like a lot just to take out and drive. But most of the time, if I'm not having to take more than one person somewhere, it'll be in the Lamborghini or in this. About 3 or 4 months ago, I bought this 2009 Ferrari F430 Scuderia. And it is Grigio Silverstone over red interior. I absolutely love red interiors on cars, especially over gray. One of my first and favorite Ferrari memories was watching the 1997 550 Maranello World Speed Record car, which Richard Hammond owns, kind of a tribute car to, a WSR 550 Maranello, and those were Grigio Titanio over Bordeaux with a factory roll cage. And the local owner of Ferrari of Atlanta actually has the one that set that record, because it was the fastest 100 miles, fastest 100 kilometers, and most miles driven in an hour. And I think it was like 197 miles in an hour with a stop and a tire change. So they actually welded tube steel along the rockers so they could slam a jack under it, get it in the air, and do a quick tire change. It was all done at Nardo. So I love that. And for me, like you, I love the Challenge Stradale. I think it's the most beautiful car that maybe Ferrari's ever made, and that would be contested with, pontoon fender Testarossas and a lot of very, very pretty cars. But to me, this is just better in enough ways to justify buying that one-step evolution. The gearbox is infinitely better, the interior is way better, it makes a good bit more power, and it's just a lot more reliable and usable. So I've already put about 8,000 miles on this car since I bought it 4 months ago. We did a rally from Nashville to Las Vegas and back, and that was about 6,000 miles. And so I absolutely love it. I can actually sit up straight in it, which is an interesting novelty and something I certainly appreciate. And it's been a great car.
Well, there we go, a full tour of well, it's not really a driveway, it was more the garage, wasn't it? But there is a driveway. Anyway, any of you that have ever seen the VINWiki channel will know that Ed has an insanely cool studio where he films the stories that appear on the channel. What you may not realise is that studio is actually above us right now, above all of his cars, and I'm about to head up there right now and tell some stories for the channel. So if you've never seen it before, I'll put a link below. You can make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for some STG stories. And then, yes, after that, we're going to be hitting the road in one. It's pretty obvious. Well, it's probably in the title. Is it in the title? No, I don't know. But anyway, we're going to be hitting the road in one of Ed's cars, and it was, yeah. I mean, you should all know, if you've watched this channel before, you should all know which car we're taking out. Come on, people. It was only ever going to be a Ferrari, people. Sometimes my audience are like, oh, he likes Porsches now. And I'm like, who do you think I am? It's only ever Ferrari.
We all have to love Ferraris.
Of
It just
course.
is what makes you a proper car guy.
Of course we are starting that up so you can hear it, but also to get the air conditioning on. Because
it's Atlanta and it's hot.
yeah, I'm still in the South, which is why I look like a sort of failed tennis player today, but this is like as light as my clothing goes. So yeah, I apologize for my appearance. I know you care a lot, but
that's right. That's right.
anyway, so look, let's rock and roll because yes, I'm obsessed with this car and I want to talk more about it, but we have to also talk about the channel, how you became a YouTuber, and you say something you didn't really expect to happen. So
Very true.
Yeah, let's hit the road and then we'll have a bit of a chat.
Sounds great.
Go for it. How did it all begin? Because it was an app to start with, right?
Right, yeah, so we still have an app called VINWiki. It's US only for now, but it's kind of like a vehicle history reporting platform, kind of like in the US we have Carfax and AutoCheck, and the idea was if we could crowdsource that, we would discover information about cars that you would never know beforehand. So like when I bought this car, I found out that it was like a Fab Speed demo car that had all of their headers and exhaust and everything on it previously. It doesn't have it on it now.
Okay, because I was going to say, it would have been a lot, we would have been like, what is that?
Exactly. So those kind of things you normally never know because it doesn't usually get attached to the VIN, but people can post to any car by the VIN or by the license plate, and it just becomes this kind of living, breathing database of cars. So it's actually now the largest public-facing automotive database that exists.
Wow, that's incredible. And do you know how many like sort of users or cars you have?
We've got about 225,000 users, and it's got about 165 million cars. But the cool thing is that one of our best features is that you can build a list of cars. So like there's a list of all the cars that I've owned. So if you ever want to see what happened to one of your old cars, then you get to just click on it, look and see if anybody's posted to it. You can follow them and stuff like that.
That's awesome, dude.
So like I found out that my first Gallardo got exported to Hong Kong, and that one of my 360s got crashed, and one of my Mercies got crashed, and you'll see people modify them in like horrific ways.
Like, what are you doing?
Man. But you know, it's one of those things. Like we had a guy early on that put in his Aventador and found out that it had been like crashed by a transporter into a truck. It had also been caught on fire by a valet revving it in South Beach. No. And so he's like, this is crazy. He immediately is like, can I invest in it? Like,
please.
No, not right now.
Wow.
But we appreciate it.
So how did it go from there to YouTube?
Well, when you start a small business, you know, you set up your social media accounts, and so we had a Facebook account and an Instagram account and a Twitter account, and we put a couple like explainer videos about like what VINWiki is on YouTube, not to gain an audience, just for hosting, right?
Sure.
I decided, all right, well, what we could do is say like VINWiki, the app, is kind of about like the story of the car. So what if we created an arena for people to capture their best car stories? And so that's what we ask you. It's like, what's the craziest thing that ever happened in a car for you? And I had kind of packaged a lot of my best car stories from the exotic car rental company that I had and the dealership where I worked and things like that. And so for a book that I'd written, okay. So I kind of had them ready. So
sure.
I just had a bunch of friends come over. This is a great place to.
I said, if you want to punch it, like yeah. To ask me for permission to punch it. Just go, honestly. Too cool, this car. Oh, you know, anytime I get into a special Ferrari, I think they're all special,
yeah, for sure.
But my heart. Okay, so now we're totally distracted and completely lost our thought.
I just got a bunch of pizza and beer and invited a bunch of friends over to the VINWiki warehouse and said, we're going to tell our best car stories today. And that's where it started.
And it blew up from there. Amazing. And before we come back to this car, because all I want to talk about is this car, Cannonball very quickly. So you obviously had the record. What was it,
28 hours, 50 minutes.
Which is mad, because as I hinted at in the garage sort of walk around, I'm doing the opposite, obviously, LA to New York or Miami, over 3 months. And like, I'm exhausted. Most days are 6 to 8 hours. Yeah. I'm obviously like zigzagging it, but is there one thing which says the hardest part of Cannonball? Or
the hardest part is building the team, like finding other crazy enough people to help you not only as co-drivers, but as scouts, as people to witness it, as people to help you build the car and do all the things that you've got to do. Like, it took about 29 people doing different things to make our record happen. And so, you know, it was all very worth it, but it's also, you don't gain that much from it. Like, you can't say that my YouTube channel has anything really to do with Cannonball. We have some Cannonball stories because it's the kind of stuff that I like.
Sure.
But it's really not like just about that. So you don't get famous for it. You do it because it's like the way you see yourself with respect to cars.
And experience.
Exactly.
Oh, wow, there's like a ton of stuff on the ground.
That's the nature of it. That's okay. See, I like cars that have terrible history, tons of paintwork, a lot of miles, so that you don't have to worry.
So you can just drive
I don't
it.
worry about anything.
And you know what? It's such a good mentality because otherwise you're just terrified of taking it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I said that with the Carrera T at the beginning of the year. I said, the first knock that happens will be the best.
That's it.
Because, you know, at that point I just got to let it go. And we've been pretty lucky with it, but I'm that way because otherwise I freak out on the cars. Like, I'm the kind of guy I lick cars, you know, I'm like, don't want anything to go wrong with it. But you've got a good mentality. So yes, let's finally get into this thing. How many miles are on the clock there?
35,755.
Okay, so a good amount. Do you know how many you've put on?
I have put on about 8,000.
8,000. Okay, but you've only had it like 3 months.
Right, yeah, so in a short period of time.
You're doing well. And we already touched on the fact that the 360 Challenge Scuderia is kind of one of your dream cars, like myself. But you went with this because it's just a better and easier car to live with?
It is, yes. It's just so much easier to use. In fact, you need to drive it. Let's switch.
Really?
Yes, of course.
You know I'm not going to say no.
No, I
Are you sure?
want you to. Absolutely.
I was tempted for a second to be like, nah, man, come on. But I was like, what am I talking about?
Pretend.
Really?
No, you got, of course, yeah.
Some of you may have thought that I was just being really ungracious there and just be like, yeah, cool, no worries, mate. But do you know why? Because on this trip, so many people offer me great opportunities and I'm just too nervous about it and nice because other people's cars. So I am massively grateful for this. But I thought, if I turn it down, I'm going to regret it so much. Like, I knew I would leave here being like, why did I not drive the Scud? Come on.
It does come with one caveat.
Okay.
The rear tires are pretty bald.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, I don't. I'm not going to be like, thanks, man.
You can use the rest of them, but it's it might slide around on you a bit.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
We're
going to enjoy ourselves, but I'm going to be very, very cautious.
You're fine. How tall are you? 6'4"?
6'2".
Okay,
6'2".
so yeah, like I'm 6'5", and this is one of those few cars that I can actually sit in pretty comfortably. And you've got the racing seats in your 360, so like the extra headroom and everything, I find the car to be just extremely comfortable and kind of the perfect complement to the Mercy.
Absolutely, because Lambos, I mean, I'm surprised you fit in the Lambo, if I'm honest.
I don't,
yeah.
but Clarkson said once that he's my height, 6'5". He said I can fit in any car that I want to.
Sure, good point.
And
you
so,
drive like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I have to do this, but I really want to do it, I will do it. The gearbox is way.
Yeah, that's nice. Oh my god, this is just too cool. I didn't see this coming for me today, so. Oh yeah, they're brilliant cars, and the noise of them. I actually had an argument with, Chris Harris, so I appeared on a podcast with him not so long, a couple of months ago now, and he was going at me saying, how could you prefer the Challenge Scuderia over the Scuderia? Like, it's just so much better as a car in every single way. But that's a bit like the 488 and the 458.
Yes.
Because the 488 is a better car in every way, but I still personally want a 458.
Right.
And so I applaud and I understand your decision, but for me it's still, because like, this is great, but for me it's still not a Challenge Scuderia. So much. I didn't expect to be driving your car today, but it's been amazing. So yeah, cheers, buddy.
Absolute pleasure.
Well, any day where you get to drive a 430 Scuderia is a good day, but it's especially a good day when you get to hang out with Ed and hear all of his stories. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I thought it was super, super interesting, and I really enjoyed filming the chats for his channel, as I said earlier. If you haven't subscribed to it, go check it out. It's definitely a cool way to hear cool car stories. But anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to STG for plenty of videos to come.
Coming in, flex. I just wanna win, LABB, who we running with, 2, 2, 3, 3, I'm on 10 again, state your name, big dope on flame, I just switched the lanes, damn he did it again.